10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
When was the last time you regretted a decision that you were once really excited about, or made a decision and thought of all the things you could do when it didn't work out instead of thinking about what you would do when it did? Decision making is about making choices amongst alternative courses of actions, which may also include inaction. As humans, we come across situations that require us making some hard decisions. Today, we will be talking about hard decisions, and I have with me a very, very special guest who will be sharing her experiences with us. I'll be back shortly. Hello everyone, and welcome back from that short break. Thank you for joining us on today's edition of The Platform. My guest today is a registered respiratory therapist at St. Boniface Hospital, a creative enthusiast who loves all forms of art, good books, and most recently photography as well as photo editing. Viewers, join me in welcoming Victoria Saibu. Thank you for coming to The Platform today.
Oh yeah, thanks a lot for having me.
Okay, so I read your biography, I saw it, and from that I was able to gather that you were born in Nigeria and you're from Nigeria. So what age or when did you come to Canada?
Okay, so my family moved here in 2012.
Oh wow.
I was 19, so I was pretty fully grown. I was lucky in that my siblings and my family all moved, so I didn't have that international student experience. I was lucky that I came here with my family. And I don't think I would have preferred to have it any other way.
Okay, so that's fair enough. So you came at an age where you already had I would say, pretty good understanding of life and how life works. Right. Yeah. So how has life been in Canada compared to Nigeria?
Honestly, it's almost a no-brainer. It's obviously better here. I feel like I have the advantage of having my family again, because that's for me, that's a big thing. But in regards to my profession and things I've been able to achieve at this age, I don't think that I would have that opportunity if I was back home. So definitely being here trumps living in Nigeria for me. And it's ironic because before we moved over, I remember feeling really disheartened because I had this image of what moving to Canada would look like in my head. Because I was already fully established, I was in year 3 in university back then.
Wow.
So I thought, I have to leave my friends and come start all over again from God knows what. But it's been a really positive experience since we moved.
That's very, very great. So the decision to migrate to Canada was your parents' decision?
Yes.
So do you have any regrets about that, or?
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
No. So so how this played out was I was in third year in university, and my parents called me, say, a week before we had to leave. It's like, hey, pack your stuff. We're moving to Canada. And I remember crying, actually, because my friends were like, you're crying because you're moving to Canada. You know how many people would kill to be in your shoes right now. But that was pretty much, I was aware that we were processing something to move, but it was taking so long that I didn't think it would actually happen. So when it happened, I was surprised. And but since I moved here, it's been a really good experience. I obviously made newer friends, and I still keep in touch with all the friends that I have. And I think the best part of it is it let me be in the profession that I am in, which is it's a very niche one. It's something that you would only be able to see, say in the States or here in Canada, or some parts of the United Kingdom. So I'm grateful for that opportunity, obviously.
So, it's really odd that you say they told you a week before you came, because my parents did something similar. I was lucky, they told me about 3 months before. But for so many people that I know that are Nigerians that have migrated to Canada, that are all of them have been oh, my parents told me a week before, a month before. They never, because my parents also told me, oh, something is happening, Manitoba. Yeah. But I wasn't, I just knew something Manitoba was. I didn't really not that I didn't care, but I didn't care I just knew, and one day oddly enough, we saw Manitoba on the news, CNN, because I think it was a record-breaking like winter, and I was like, oh, look, it's Manitoba on the news, and they were like, yeah, exactly. And then eventually they were like, so Manitoba's a place? I was like, oh, because I didn't care that much.
It didn't really click. I mean, to be fair to my parents, it wasn't so much of a surprise. Like, I knew of it, like, and I remember maybe from 2 years ago, like, oh, if you get a chance, try looking up universities in Manitoba that you would want to go. But nothing happened for 2 years, and I was in my third year in university. So I was like, I feel like at the very least they'll let me finish my degree before it happens. But no, like sometime third year they just call us like, hey, come home next week so we can travel.
So what has been like your biggest surprise or like culture shock since you came to Canada?
I think the fact that I think Canada, and especially Manitoba, actually, it's a very isolated community. If that makes sense. Like, okay, I remember when we came, like my uncle picked us up from the airport, and on the way home, the first thing I asked his wife, because we were in two cars, and she was driving, and the first thing that I asked was, where's everybody? Like, the streets were so empty. It's like there's no one walking by. Coming from Lagos, where it's like there's always people. Like you can't walk around like this without like slamming someone.
Of course, yes.
So it's like it just feels so empty. But since then, I mean, it is what it is. Like we've learned to like blend, and and that is one of the reasons why I'm forever grateful for the fact that I have my family. So because I know a lot of international students who came, and I mean, not trying to like point fingers or anything, but people who, like, it's easier to be like carried away if you don't have like some kind of like support system. And I had that, and I'm really grateful for that. So the only culture shock was how distant everyone seemed, but I had my family, so it was fine.
Okay, so now diving deeper into our discuss for today, our actual topic for today, which is hard decisions. Right. So in your opinion, what are hard decisions, and have you ever been confronted with certain situations where you are left with no choice than to take that hard decision?
Oh, I definitely have been. So a hard decision for me is something that, I don't know, like it always feels like something that you know is maybe not your first choice, but something that you know that in the long run will be beneficial, but it's not the first thing that jumps out at you.
Yeah.
If that makes like something you almost need like a push or a guide to make that decision. It's not something you want to do naturally. So so to answer your question, I'm gonna tell you the second hardest decision I ever made, and then work my way up to my first decision. So the first, I guess the second was when I decided to go to Thompson. I took a job in Thompson.
Oh, wow.
Straight after school here, after I graduated from University of Manitoba. So I finished school in a year where I guess there were a lot of politics, and they were like closing down hospitals, and jobs were very scarce. And my program only takes 16 people each year.
Wow.
And of 16 people, maybe only 9 people got a job.
Wow.
So it was a very difficult time, and everyone was, just applying to the same jobs were pretty much non-existent. So, like one day I just woke up and I was like, no, this isn't for me. Like I didn't go to school to stay home and do nothing. So on a whim, I went on Google and I looked for like remote jobs in Manitoba, like respiratory therapist jobs in Manitoba. It doesn't matter where it is. And Thompson popped up, and I applied, and before like the end of the week they replied like, hey, do you want to interview?
Wow.
And I said, yeah, sure. I mean, I'll interview over the phone, because Thompson is 8 hours away by road. And because it's a remote community, the flight tickets cost $800 or $900 for every 10 tickets. So I was like, I'm fresh out of school, I'm not going to fly down, and I'm not driving down. And this was way before COVID.
Okay.
So they actually interviewed me over the phone, and they offered me a job over the phone. And I think it's funny because despite being, I was low-key desperate for a job, I still said, you know what, I'm not going to come over until I write my exams, and I passed them. So I think from the day I got the job, I didn't fly down until a month after.
Wow.
And so that was the second hardest decision, because everyone else wanted to, obviously you want to work in the bigger hospitals here, but I knew that, okay, I need a job and I need experience fast. And it's almost a catch-22, because you need experience to apply for jobs, but how do I get experience without if you won't give me a job? You know what I mean? So I made the choice to move to Thompson, 8 hours away. It's colder. If you think Manitoba, if you think Winnipeg is isolated, Thompson is twice as cold,
Oh,
twice
wow.
as isolated. I moved there by myself. Like I remember when I got there, everyone was like, did you move here by yourself?
Is everything okay?
Did you move here by yourself? Like that was the hardest, and till date, I think it's the bravest thing I'd ever done because I didn't, I didn't really know anyone out there. And even moving there, like I flew there, like the hospital gave me an apartment for the first 3 months.
Okay.
So I had to find an apartment for myself. I had to, just get settled. But it's so funny because that experience is, I think, what put me ahead of the rest of my class just in terms of experience. Because Thompson is so remote, so you see everything, you do everything, like you practice your full scope.
Wow.
So, and this was me like 6 months out of school, I was doing everything. As opposed to new grads out here who were still being like, cuddled and held by the hand.
Getting put into the,
So that was definitely my second hardest. The hardest decision was 2 years after when I decided to leave Thompson without a job lined up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
That was my second hardest. But at that point, I was just used to like taking risks because I'd been there for 2 years. Like the isolation was getting to me, the distance was getting to me. Like in order to come see my parents, I would either have to fly or drive 8 hours one way on the highway. So essentially a 16-hour drive.
Wow.
Back and forth.
All alone.
Yeah,
wow.
All alone or some. And I remember like my parents would be extremely worried about me driving on the highway with my little SUV. But so yeah, the second hardest was leaving that job because it got to a point where everything was getting to me and the work culture was not the greatest. And I feel like in as much as I learned a lot, like I would be better off being close to my family and my friends and a bigger hospital. So I remember, trying to do the responsible thing. So apply to jobs before you leave your old job. And I didn't find anything as soon as I wanted, so I just left.
Wow.
I just said, okay, well, this is my 4 weeks notice, I guess. I'm just gonna leave. And it's so good, it was so fun because I prayed about it, right?
Okay.
And God came through for me because before my notice period was over, like I got a job in Winnipeg.
Oh, that's
great. But that
great.
was after I just like leapt into the dark, so to speak, and just like quit. So that was my hardest decision, and it didn't come easy because I thought, oh wait, what will people say? Like you came back without a job, like that makes no sense. And I don't know if you can relate to this, but if you're from an immigrant household, like your work ethic, like how you work, like it takes priority. Like how do I go back home and tell my Nigerian parents that I left
my job where they were paying me and I came
exactly they were paying me like a lot of money and I just came back to sit at home to do what, but God did not let me put to shame.
That questioning would have been very, very tough.
Yeah, like he really came through for me because I just decided, like I'm going to do it. So those were the two hard decisions, and I will say that they did not come without a lot of like internal strife, like hey, is this the right decision? Like what people think or say, but ultimately you pray about it, you leave it to God because there's only so much you can fix as a human, and I think it worked out for me.
Now, did you find that those decisions were hard because you knew they were the right thing to do, or did you just find that they were hard just because they were hard?
Oh, I knew that they were hard because they were, in both instances it was the right decision. It definitely was, but it just didn't look like the easiest one.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like because obviously it would be so much nicer if everything you wanted was handed to you on a platter of gold. And
amazing.
It's like there's like arrows pointing to the decision that you think you need to make. But that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case for me. So it was hard because I had to. If we're being realistic, if you ask someone else, should she quit her job without something else lined up? It would have been that's not the right decision.
Yeah.
But it was the right decision for me because I felt like I left at a good time, and I was able to like recover from what seemed like a risky choice. So yeah.
So do you think that the reason some hard decisions are so hard is because this is kind of like the question I just asked, but do you think that they're hard because like we as just humans as a whole just need something that just like tells us, like a sign, like because we don't necessarily have like something telling us like this is what we should do, that's why they're hard? Or do we just think they're hard because we overthink? Or is it like a combination of both?
It might be a combination of both, because in a lot of instances where people feel paralyzed by choice, I often think it's because you have too many choices.
Right,
and that's
yes.
when you, what do I do? Like, you have too many choices. Or sometimes like this might not be a very popular opinion, but I think people rely too heavily on let me ask about
Yes.
like sometimes you just have to take a stance and like pray about it.
Mm-hmm.
Ask God for guidance, and at the end of the day, like take a stance and stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like preferably God's stance, but if it doesn't seem clear in that moment, like because at the end of the day, you're still responsible for your own life.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times you're paralyzed by, oh, let me ask this, I mean, don't get me wrong. There is a place for advice from people
Yes,
who've
of
been through
course.
situations before. But at the end of the day, like you're still fully responsible for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and there has to be a certain amount of like courage required.
Yeah.
And because if you ask me, oh, do you think people don't want to do it because they think it's hard? I think people just rely on people's opinions too much. Like, let me ask this person, ask this person. A lot of times, like you already know deep down what they're gonna say.
Yeah.
So
you just need that person's confirmation.
yeah, you just need that confirmation bias almost. But like what I like the point that I'm trying to like drive home is like you need a certain level of like confidence and comfort in your own decision making skills.
Yes.
And knowing that in as much as I'll ask and I'll listen, you're responsible for your own life at the end of the day, and make your decisions and stick with it.
I think like for concerning the decisions and them being hard, I just think we as just people, we just need some like a confirmation. We just need something that's just like, because even if you go to your friend or your mom or your dad and you're like, should I do this? And then they say the opposite of what you want to hear. You're not gonna do what they told you to do. You're still gonna do what you want to do. So what's the point of asking?
At the end of the day, I feel like it's just a way to check off. Okay, how many people
agree
with what I was going to do anyways?
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously like I said, like I will always say there's a place for it, asking for advice or referring to like expert advice, whatever. But always be willing to put that foot forward confidently and with courage.
Yeah. I think we always have to follow our instincts. Because at the end of the day, we know what we want to do. Right. We know what our heart is telling us to do. And most importantly, we know what God is telling us to do.
Exactly.
So even if you go to that person, that your mentor, whoever, and that person says the opposite of what you want to hear, you're still going to do what you want to do. It doesn't matter.
Right? And at the end of the day, like, what was I going to say? At the end of the day, like I said, just take a stance and stick with it. Like, that's what makes you at the end of that's what makes you a grown-up adult. Like there's a lot of uncomfortable decisions you will have to make down the line. You have to get used to making that a thing.
Even making mistakes.
Exactly. And I think it's very nice you brought that up, because I think that's what scares people. Like the fear of, well, what if it's the wrong choice?
Exactly.
Well, no one actually really, there's almost no way to guarantee that what you choose to do is the right thing.
Yes.
Unless you're God and you can see into the future. And you're not, sorry. So, exactly, I think it's the fear of mistakes, that, oh, wait, what if I do this and it's the wrong thing? If you do it and it's the wrong thing, you bounce back.
Exactly.
It's that fear of failure that holds people back from making, what they think is the wrong choice, the wrong decision. So...
We're always so quick to say, like, if you make mistakes, it's okay, you'll just learn from it. But when it's actually time to put that, saying into action, we all forget it. Because, even if you take that decision and it's a mistake, you're going to learn from it.
Exactly.
But when it's time to make that decision, then we all forget,
It's so hard. And to be fair, a lot of mistakes don't just happen. it's not just, just a mistake, let me just bounce back.
Yeah.
A lot of them have, there's a financial component to it. There's there's maybe you spent a couple of years doing what you thought was the right thing, but in retrospect it turned out to be the wrong thing. So I think that's what people fear more than anything. Wasting my time, wasting my money, wasting my efforts. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's just what life is. You can't just go through life. I think that all those things add a bit of nuance to life. And hopefully you come back from that you come out of that being a better person, and a wiser person. It'd be really silly if you went through all that and you took nothing from it.
Exactly.
Right? So
I think it's weird that you said that making mistakes adds a nuance, because I personally believe that, as odd as it may sound, but taking mistakes or making mistakes, it adds a little bit of spice to life. If life was just this perfect, easy, smooth thing, we would all get bored, I think. Because if you everything is set for you, you're going to do this and this and this and this, we're all going to get bored, and we're going to want to make mistakes just so we can just test the waters. You know, because even with parents that have like babies, you know, sometimes a child does what's wrong. That child deep down knows that it's wrong, but they're still gonna do it anyway just to test it.
And a lot of times, like, you see parents just, you know what, just leave him alone.
Yeah.
Let him fall. And like, he's gonna, like, he will learn from
Exactly.
it. So, you know, like, I think it's like, if you take everything, like, yeah, of course, listen to your parents, listen to your elders, like, pray about it. I think that should be the priority. Pray about it, because God
Number
knows more
one.
than, yeah, that's definitely priority. Like, God knows more than every single person combined. So, like, pray about it. Like, you know, like, try and ask for discernment to know, okay, am I doing the right thing or not? But ultimately, having said all that, you're more responsible for your life than anyone else. You know,
Exactly.
Obviously, not more than God, but like, you're more responsible for your life than anyone else you're asking for advice from.
Exactly. So some people shy away from making decisions, and they would rather allow things happen by chance, and they just live by that. So what do you have to say to this?
That's not good, and don't do that. No, because so that just puts you at the mercy of life. Like, you don't feel like you're in charge of your own life. Like, you feel like you're just, if you never make those difficult decisions, as you know, as we put it, it's like, it just feels like you never really had a say in your own life. You just kind of go
with the flow.
Like, yeah, just go where the current pushes you. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, lots of people live like that, if you're being honest. Like, people do that, and yeah, eventually something will eventually stick, you know, something will eventually, like, if you go with the flow, fine, it will eventually, whatever, like, but it may not be, like, the quality of life you're living won't be as premium as if you actually took responsibility for your actions, took responsibility for your decisions, you know. So I know it can be really scary, but at the same time, like, you still have the last, like, you still have control, like, you have, you know, that final direction over how it's going to go, as opposed to just not making it because you're scared of what the outcome might be.
My fear with like people going with the flow is that they'll end up having a situation where they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Because, you know, if you take decisions and, you know, you take those hard decisions, then you're less likely to make those mistakes that put you in a compromising position. Whereas if you go with the flow and you kind of just let things happen, then chances are you're going to end up where you shouldn't be, probably mixed with the wrong crowd, and then your life might just take a, what's it called, a downward spiral.
Exactly. And, you know, like, going with the flow, just, like, when I hear go with the flow, like, I have a picture of someone who's just, you know, they have no morals, like, they have no, like, they don't have a point of view. They just, oh yeah, sure, whatever. Like, you know, just like, sure, whatever, their way through life. And I don't know, like, if you know people like that in real life, they just have this,
I don't care attitude.
Like, just like, it's just something like really lukewarm.
Yes.
About them, you know. So like, that's why I don't think, obviously that's not a very, I mean, if that's what you want out of life, sure, fine, that's okay, you do what you want. But for me and for a lot of other people, like, I think it makes more sense, like, it gives you more fulfillment out of life to feel like you're responsible, like you're in control of the direction your life is headed.
Okay, so guys, the conversation is getting very, very interesting, and we'll be back right after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
Hello there, I am Buki Sholanke of Maximum Realty, your favorite real estate agent. With almost 15 years as a real estate professional, starting from United Kingdom and in Canada to being a licensed realtor here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, I am passionate in helping people make the right decision when it's time for them to purchase their dream homes and in selling their properties. I walk with you every step of the way, throughout all the process, to ensure that you do not fail. The professionalism, personal touch, and genuine empathy that I employ in getting the job done are what set me apart and also help build strong bond with all my clients, which makes them to always come back, as well as refer their friends and families to me. Call me today on 204-997-6117 to schedule an appointment, and I am all yours. Buki Sholanke, your trusted family realtor.
Hi
there. The changing economy has affected almost everyone, even me. Do you want to know how you can supplement your income with a digital business? If you are that person and you are so interested, you can please reserve a seat for a free complimentary webinar at www.welahobomi.com to know more.
We welcome you to Yummy Fashion for all your souvenirs, asoebi, embellishment of fabric, and fashion designing needs.
Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for still staying with us from that very, very short break. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. For those just joining us, our topic of discuss today is hard decisions. Now, a little into your career as a respiratory therapist,
Right.
What drew you to this aspect of healthcare, and how did you make your decision on this career path?
Okay, so when I was in my second year of URVM here, because thankfully for me, when I transferred from Nigeria, I had some courses that I was able to transfer here, so I didn't have to start school all the way from
Scratch?
University 1, right? So, but what I did that really I think helped me was I took a course at U of M that I think the name of the course was health professions or like something specific to like the list of health professions in Manitoba that's not nursing or being a doctor and what they do, because I knew I didn't want to be a nurse. Okay. I knew that much. So I was like, hey, what else can I do? And even if I wanted to go into medicine, like become a medical doctor down the line, here you need a 4-year degree. Okay. So I was thinking, okay, what's the best healthcare course or healthcare related course I can take that's similar enough to nursing, but gives me like inside experience of what it's like to work in healthcare system here. So I took that course and I found respiratory therapy. And, I kind of, did my research and was like, hey, this seems like it had a more technical side to it. And I've always been more of a hands-on person, like I like working with machines and equipment and like tinkering around. Like we still take care of patients, but we're not as involved as nurses are. So that was what drew me to it. And luckily for me, I also had friends within the science classes I was taking, and I had a friend who also wanted to apply. So when they came to URVM for an open house session, she was like, hey, respiratory therapists are, they're at the hall, wherever, like, do you want to come with me? I was like, yeah, I was actually thinking about that. So that was literally how I got into it. But like, I don't know if you know this, but there was a bit of like back work, like background, like me doing the work beforehand, just so that I knew what options were available to me, and the rest is history.
You're very lucky in the sense that you went into medicine. Yeah. Because you have Nigerian parents. Yeah. We all know the Nigerian parents stereotype. You either become a lawyer, an engineer, a doctor. It's not any of those three. They do not want to hear it. I mean, luckily, I think some of them are starting to change. Right, thankfully. Right. But yeah, you're very lucky. And I think respiratory therapy is like, I don't know much about it, but from like what I've been able to gather, I think it's like a great in-between between being a doctor and being a nurse. Yes. So respiratory therapists fall under what we call allied health professionals. And this is actually a great opportunity for me to actually explain what it is we do, because I have a lot of people who, like, they know what I do. Like, every time they ask me, I tell them, but they're like, yeah, I'm just going to call you a nurse because I don't know what that is. I don't know how to explain. So respiratory therapists take care of people who have breathing problems. So if you come into hospital, the reason why a lot of people don't know what we are or what we do is because
at the major hospitals, we work in mostly critical care units. Right. So we normally work with people who are in an induced coma or a natural coma. So if chances are, if I work with you in hospital, you won't know me because you're out of it the entire time. Wow. Or we work with people who are, to put it delicately, on the brink of death. So when someone comes in with, like a huge trauma from an accident, or they're having a heart attack or things like that, and they need us to like secure their airway so we can keep breathing for them, because chances are when they come in stress or post accident, they're unconscious. So we're responsible for putting them in a, like doctors put them in an induced coma, and we put them on a ventilator or what we call life supports, or a breathing machine, and we take care of that machine. So we take over the function of their lungs. Wow. For them. So we do this from babies, like tiny newborn 26-week premature babies, wow, all the way up to adults. So chances are, if you come into hospital and you're extremely sick, or you have a relative or family member in the ICU and they're extremely ill, you'll see us there. And a lot of the times the patients either get better and get sent to the ward, so they almost never see us again, or they die and we have to take them off the vent. So it's either you see us sometimes, or it's the last people you see before you die. Wow. So it's a very niche profession, and it's not something a lot of people know. But that's not the only part of the hospital we work in. So we work in ICUs, we work with babies. We also do clinics. So if you have asthma or a bunch of lung diseases, there's also people who work in clinics across the city, and they help. They do tests to help diagnose that. And they help you with your medication and the best way for you to manage your respiratory diseases. So that kind of covers a lot of what we do.
The silent helpers of
exactly.
The respiratory system.
Like whenever someone cannot breathe, if you ever have someone coming to emerge, or they go into hospital with a major breathing issue, or they're unconscious and they need to or think of it as we need to shut down their bodies until they can recover enough to breathe for themselves, where the lungs outside the body.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lungs outside. I love that. Lungs outside the body. Okay. Now, sometimes let's get back to hard decisions.
Right.
Very hard. I'm sure, was it a hard decision? Because, for your career, it sounds like it would have been a very hard decision.
Right.
Like going into being a respiratory therapist.
It wasn't a hard decision for me because I took that course and I knew what my options were in regards to what I could do in healthcare that did not involve, me being a nurse or being a pharmacist or being a physio or an OT. And even I think being a physio or OT requires you to have it's a master's program. Wow. So when I narrowed it down, respiratory was the one thing that appealed to me the most, because it was also the most, how do I describe it? It was new to me. And I went to the open house. I saw what they did. And I was like, I actually really like this. This is something. Yeah, exactly. Wow. That's the word, intrigued. This is something that I would be very interested in. And when I applied, because they only take a specific number of students each year. And I think I told myself, if I apply and I don't get in, maybe it wasn't meant to be. But I applied and I got in on my first try. I was like, okay, wow, this is it. We're doing this. Wow. And since then, I haven't had any regrets. I love what I do. This past year has been really tedious. It's been very challenging, but only because of COVID, and it's made our work a lot harder, because when people come into hospital with COVID and they can't breathe, because it's a respiratory disease to some extent, yes, and they can't breathe, we're the ones there securing that airway or making it easier for them to breathe. So it's been very stressful. So maybe this isn't a good year to ask me if I love my job. But if you'd asked me, before COVID, I would have been, absolutely yes, and even now, it's just once the stressful part is done, I still appreciate what I do, and it makes me excited.
Well, let's forget about COVID for a minute, but It sounds like you're the type of person, you love your job, and It sounds like you don't ever feel the need to necessarily take a vacation from the job.
No, that is not true.
The job itself is just, no, you feel the need to take a vacation?
Yes, wow, absolutely yes, because healthcare in general is it's very demanding emotionally, I don't want to sound morbid or anything like that, but I see people die a lot. You know, you go into work, not everyone makes it. And chances are, if you're in ICU, you're there because you're very sick. So a lot of the times, not everyone comes off life support, not everyone comes off ventilator. So people, like, I see babies die, like tiny babies who never came out of ICU, they never got to go home. I see adults die. You go into emerg, someone's having a heart attack, they die. And, you know, because we're all human, right? So it really gets to you, you know, like, or half the time, or maybe, you know, like, you have to deal with, fine, like the person died and then there's the family in the hallway like crying, like actually really, and because you're human and you do that over and over and over again, like there's a point where it gets to you, right? So no, absolutely, even if I had the best job in the world, I would still need to take a break from it. But like, especially with this one, I try and pace myself. So I have the kind of schedule that lets me do, you know, like a stretch, and when I have my stretches off, I try to not think about work whatsoever. I don't bring it up. I don't like, I try and recharge fully before I go in so I can continue to give the care that my patients deserve.
Okay, it's really interesting.
Thank you.
It's very, very interesting. So sometimes we make decisions only to find out later that such decisions are not the best.
Right.
And so I have to ask, have you ever regretted any decision that you took in the past?
Well, I wouldn't say, I don't have any major regrets. I don't have any major regrets because I like to think that before I take a decision, I really think it, like, I think it through. You know what I mean? Like, I take what I would consider a calculated risk, even if it's a decision that feels like it might not go the way that I planned. If I think of like all the possible outcomes as much as I can, and if it doesn't go the way that I hoped it would, because I'm not a tree, I will uproot myself,
of course,
and you know, like take the next best course of action, if that makes sense. So because of the kind of person I am, I like to think that I think my decisions through before I do them. So I don't have any major regrets. Other than, you know, minor things like, oh, I should have had bread for breakfast as opposed to it, but, or something like that. But no, just to be serious, no, I don't have any major regrets. And I think it has to do with the kind of like my personality and the way that I make the decisions before I make them.
Okay, so I think I want to ask you, do you think that some people focus too much on one side of a decision? Like in the sense that some people focus too much on, oh, what, like, if this choice or decision works out, they focus too much on the failure, and then when it actually does work, they're not ready for the success of it, or they focus too much on the success of it, and then when it fails, they're in this place where it's like, what do I do?
There's a very likely chance that people do that, but you know, I can't really fault them because, to be fair, like, no one tries to go into a specific decision or a plan thinking, well, I hope this fails, or if this fails, I mean, ideally, yes, you want to have a contingency plan. You know, you want to say, well, if this doesn't go the way I hoped, this is going to be the next thing I do. But, you know, like everyone, there's that human bias, like there's human error. Like, you know, when you make a choice, you tell yourself, okay, this is going to work out, even if there's red flags everywhere telling you this is not the right decision, you know? So to answer your question, yes, I think people do that, but it's not because, you know, they're being malicious or lazy. It's just human nature to look, you know, fixate or like look for the best. And the reverse, to answer your first question actually, where you said, do people sometimes focus on the
negative?
Like, yeah, exactly, on the negative so much that the success shocks them. I don't know about that. Is that something people do?
I'm not sure, because like you said, some people, or I don't know if you said it or I said it, but someone said it, and it was like, if they focus too much on the negative part, when it actually does work out, because they already have that contingency plan, then they're already like, oh wait, now they're in a position where it's like, do I actually go for this thing, or do I go for this other thing?
The only instance I can see that is, okay, I actually have, you know, someone like a friend from back home who, over the lockdown, we just finished, like, throughout last year, she started working on a side hustle, and it wasn't supposed to be something that even blew up. It was just supposed to be something small, like just like buy things online and sell to people. And surprisingly, within like 3-4 months, it blew up. Like, she had tons of orders, and she wasn't ready, and she still had a full-time job. She's like, I just want, because she's lucky that she works in tech back home, and she's able to work from home. And especially with the lockdown and everything, it was like she didn't have to physically go into work at all. And I know Nigeria didn't even have like a specific like long lockdown period, but for the amount of time she spent at home, she was like, I can actually do more. Like, my office allows me 8 hours a day for work, but I'm done in like 4 or 5 hours, So she decided to do other things, and it blew up beyond what she was expecting. She thought it would be like a pet project, and she wasn't ready for, the amount of commitment and effort it actually takes to maintain that momentum, if that makes sense. But I wouldn't say that she fixated on failure so much as she wasn't ready for it to be as successful as it was in a short amount of time. But she adjusted pretty quickly, because success is always a good thing, right? She adjusted pretty quickly. Like, now she's like cut down her hours of work to accommodate for more, to spend more time doing this thing that she wasn't expecting to take off, but actually did. So that's the only instance I can think, because I don't see why anyone would want to fixate on failure so much that success shocks you. And not even shocks you into doing the right thing, but just shocks you to the point where you can't even like decide. That would be so, that would be strange.
Right. So you said that you don't necessarily regret any decisions that you make, but we all make mistakes. We're human. So have you ever regretted any decisions that you've made that have led to mistakes?
I would say that there's a few things, maybe not necessarily mistake, but if I had to maybe do something again, I would do it slightly differently. And I would say that I have. And the only thing that I can really think of right now is, I don't know, maybe when I was younger, I would push myself to be a little more outgoing. Like, I was always such a shy kid, like I was very like soft-spoken, like I like to stay in and like, just like keep to myself. But I would say that maybe if I had pushed myself a little more, or maybe if I had someone who could like push me out of my shell, maybe things would have turned out a bit differently. But I don't even see them turn out that different. Just maybe, there's always like that sense of, like, would the grass have been greener on the other side? Like, if I'd done things this way, would it have turned out this way or whatever? But honestly, I don't have a lot of, or maybe I just can't think of any right now, to be honest with you.
I think with decisions, it's good to take like account of what you did and like what happened, but I think sometimes what we shouldn't, or what we just shouldn't do, period, is we shouldn't focus on, well, if I had done this. Because oddly enough, like recently, something that I've just been really thinking about is like, as humans, we're just never satisfied.
That is so
when
true.
We're younger, we're always like, I can't wait until I'm older. I can't wait until I'm 16. I can drive. I can't wait until I'm 10. I'll be double digits. I can't wait until I'm 13. I'll be a teenager. But then when you actually hit those ages, you're like, wait, you didn't actually take account of like what was going on back then, because you were so fixated on
the
what
next
is going to happen. Like what's actually
that
happening.
That makes so much sense.
Moment.
Like, you're so fixated on the next milestones, like and then the next one and the next one, and it's to the point where you're not even like actually like living in the moment, in the moment of what you're going through. And it's funny because when things like that happen, like what you're usually going through in that moment were things you prayed for years back, and then now they're here and you're not even like taking time to enjoy it or like savor it, because you're like your mind is already on the next thing. And I feel like to some extent I'm guilty of that. Like, I hit a milestone, or like say I set a personal goal with something and I hit that goal or that milestone and I barely even I acknowledge it. In my head I was like, well, if I hit it, maybe it wasn't even that difficult. And meanwhile, like there's a lot of people who would kill to be in that position or to have hit that milestone, or who had that milestone and it keeps getting pushed back. But I feel like I don't appreciate like the things that I've been able to achieve like enough, and your head's already okay. Well, what's the next goal we can crush?
Yes,
you know?
yes.
But no,
the next best thing.
That's a very valid, and I try and remind myself to just like take 2 steps back, like take a deep breath, savor how far you've come, like enjoy where you are, because that's what life has those like tiny little moments. Like it's not always like the big achievements. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's a very interesting point actually.
So what skills do you think are necessary to make good decisions, or just decisions, hard decisions?
Ooh. Okay, I think that the biggest thing is honesty. Believe it or not, like being honest with yourself. Because in as much as you can, if people ask, oh, how is this and this going, you can always lie to people.
Of course.
But you can't lie to yourself. So I think honesty should be at the very top. And then obviously like discernment or clarity, if you know what I mean. You need to know, okay, well, what exactly am I even trying to achieve?
Yeah, like the purpose of the whole decision within itself.
Exactly. Yeah. But and I guess this also ties in with honesty, like being, how do I say it? Like being very realistic with yourself. Like think, is this something I actually truly want, or am I trying to do this thing or stick with this because I think it's it's the right thing for someone of my age or my caliber or my whatever. Like you have to be extremely honest with yourself. If you can actually answer those questions, 80% of your work is actually done, literally. Yeah. So you need honesty, you need clarity, you need the spirit of discernment to know if you're doing the right thing, obviously. And I would also say like I said at the very beginning, just a dash of courage. No, seriously, because if you're always come on persons, I don't know, I don't know how people feel. Like what? At some point, you just have to you just have to pretty much stand for yourself and go for it. So I would say those 3 things are pretty much key to make those hard decisions. But being honest with yourself, I think, is the biggest.
Would you say that some aspect of taking those hard decisions would also include asking for people's opinions?
Yes. People's opinion can actually have a lot to do. I mean, okay, let's take, for instance, let's say you're in school taking, I don't know, let's say, or let's say you're in school and your parents are pushing you towards a specific line or a specific course or degree or something. The person's opinion in this instance that would actually carry the most weight would be your, I forget what we call them, advisors at school, like
the counselor
advisors. Yeah, exactly, because they know, okay, well, people will normally go into this field, we know what they need, we know what they should have, what traits they should possess, what courses they should be acing, obviously. And if you're nowhere near that, that's where honesty comes. Are you willing to do the work? Or are you just wasting your time by saying, yeah, sure, let me just manage to get in and I'll figure it out? Because that's where if you don't think that it's something that you can actually commit to and not just let me hustle to just get in. No, because it's a continued process, right? So if you don't think it's something you can commit to and continue to do the work for, maybe don't do it, in as much as it might hurt in that moment where, or, your parents might be disappointed, but find something you can actually do and do it well and stick with it.
So would you say that it's important that if we're taking those decisions, we ask people that we know will actually help us, not just anyone? Because it's easy to just ask, I'm just going to ask my best friend, I'm just going to ask this person, but you actually need the opinion of someone that's actually educated on that.
Absolutely. I think that's why I use the example of, going to your academic advisor or someone who's, okay, actually, what really helps me before I go into my degree, when I checked all the courses I needed to apply, I forgot to mention this, but I also shadowed a natural respiratory therapist.
Oh.
I think I sent off a cold email to someone hey, I'm an aspiring student and I want to see what it is you do. Because I was I'm not trying to go into this in my 2 eyes closed, And she was so gracious. She was so kind. She's yeah, come to the hospital. And, I'll take you around for like 3 or 4 hours, you saw what I do. So that really like solidified my decision. So, okay, this actually makes sense. So do things that like go, like maybe don't ask your circle, because people will buy, like if they're friends, they obviously like, they like you. If they're parents, they're going to push you in the direction they hope that you want it. So like step out of that circle, ask your advisor, and again, using the example of choosing a course at school. Shadow someone, like cold call someone and shadow them, see what the work is about, see if it's something you can actually do before you decide.
So would you say it's more of asking a more somewhat neutral person?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how can we develop good decision-making skills?
By pushing yourself to make hard decisions. The more you do it, the easier it gets. But at the same time, I really hope that life isn't full of moments where you feel like you need to make hard decisions every single step of the way, because that's a different conversation altogether. Some things should come easy, There's some things that should just be, oh yeah, like this is an easy decision for you. If you feel like you're having to make hard decisions like that often, maybe you need a different environment, or you need like a different set of skills, or you need like a different outlook. But for the most part, there'll be, if we're talking about people my age, like roughly, maybe you've had to make a couple hard decisions along the way, but it shouldn't be something that's consistent if you're making quality decisions, so that you don't have to be making a hard decision every single month, So yeah, like that's how I think that should go.
So finally, do you have any advice for our viewers on like how to cope with taking hard decisions, how to take that step into, making that decision?
Well, obviously, like I said, be honest with yourself always. Like that's the first thing. Be very realistic with what your capabilities are and what you want. And ultimately, ask people that you trust. Like obviously this might be unpopular, but don't always ask people that know you. Like ask someone who's neutral about you and who can give you objective advice and objective feedback. And lastly, always pray about it. God won't lead you wrong.
So I would just like to say a big, 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 big thank you for joining us today.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Love this conversation.
Yeah.
So on behalf of STO Global Concept.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for joining us.
I appreciate that. You're very welcome.
Of the platform. So everybody, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Once again, this is our guest, Victoria Saibu, and we will be right back. In all honesty, and from my little understanding, decisions are the hardest things to make, especially when it is a choice between where you should be and where you actually want to be. As we round up this episode, I would like to make it clear that no one makes perfect decisions 100% of the time. When you delay making a decision because you're afraid of messing up, nothing changes, but when you're proactive, you are choosing to move ahead, and that's one of the best decisions you can make. To my friends and other youths out there, our parents have made certain decisions in the best interest of our future. That means we have a duty to complement these efforts and decisions by walking our way through the path of progress. With dedication, resilience, and discipline, the sky is only our beginning, not our limit. Till we come your way again next month, together and in love, we can make the world a better place.